And welcome everyone to CGTN's special coverage of the World Economic Forum's 2023 annual meeting. I'm Michael Wang here in our virtual Davos studio in Beijing. And welcome to our panel, Ask Davos, Exchanging Ideas with Global Youth and Future Leaders, where we are getting the youth perspective on some of the major topics discussed at the annual meeting. Our guests are already young leaders and changemakers, I feel, in their own right, so let me briefly introduce them. We are joined by Claire Cormier-Thielke, who is the country head of Greater China at real estate investment giant Hines Asia Pacific. Claire is a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. Claire, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Wang is Senior Advisor of Online Education and International Cooperation at China's Tsinghua University. Is a global shaper at the forum. Welcome to you as well.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Great to have you on the panel. Absolutely. Fan Hongyi is founder and chief experience officer at Curiosity, which I find to be a very good play on words. Hongyi, welcome to the program. Curiosity, I believe, aims to promote cross-cultural exchange and collaboration. Hongyi is also a global shaper at the forum. So Hongyi, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Great pleasure.
And Kamal Dadlani is co-founder and CEO at Lab4U. Lab4U's vision is to democratize science. Kamal is a World Economic Forum young global leader. All right, so welcome to you all, and let's get the conversation started. I briefly introduced all of you, but I want the panelists themselves maybe to give our viewers a better sense of what they do. So Kamal, how about we start with you, because you might need to leave us a little bit earlier to join a session with Satya Nadella of Microsoft. Yeah, so how about you kick us off?
Absolutely. Hi, Michael, and hi, all the panelists. We're here at Davos, and I'm so sorry for the people who are around me because I'm speaking to all of you from the Congress Center. You can see over there, there's so many people, and you can see the snow over there around. My name is Kamal. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Lab4U, where our mission is to democratize STEM education. STEM from its English, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we want to democratize science education so that every student around the world can live science and experiment and see the world around them, especially in the schools that don't have any lab equipment. So what we're doing is providing lab experiences with smartphone technology. So many don't know, but smartphones and tablets have several sensors, the camera, the accelerometer, and what we basically do is we design science experiments so that every student can have a lab in their pockets.
That sounds absolutely fantastic, Kamal. Very purposeful work. Enoch, how about I turn to you and maybe tell our audience a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So my name is Enoch Wang. I'm from Hong Kong, China. So at the university, I got involved with online education, international cooperation. Mainly is to how to make education more accessible, how to ensure greater access and more equitable access to quality education. And sustainability has been a theme throughout the Davos. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about this as well. And how to open doors to our classroom to the global audience so we can benefit from this international community, international aspect of this. And I guess this will also be another theme that I look forward to discuss more about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, the theme of this year's annual meeting, Enoch, is cooperation in a fragmented world. And cooperation is definitely one of the main highlights here. So perhaps you and Kamal can have a conversation in terms of democratizing science and education even more. Great stuff. Claire, let me come to you and maybe get your take. Describe yourself a little bit more to our audience.
Yeah, so glad to be here in Davos and also here with this group, a panel chatting. So I lead the Greater China business for a firm called Hines. So it's the largest private real estate development firm in the world. But we've been in China for a long time, 27 plus years, working across multiple cities within Greater China, so mainland and Hong Kong, and really across the board in terms of our offerings. So building office space, acquiring office buildings as well, to living really across the spectrum, logistics, life science, et cetera. And so It's been really great to be here because for us, a huge focus is number one, sustainability. We came in, we're very early to bringing governance like LEED and green building standards across the world in the 29 countries in which we operate, but also within China. And then on major issues like access to housing, attainable living for young people, which is a huge area that we're very passionate about. And then finally, as an international company, but working and operating within China for a long time, you just mentioned the theme, Michael. Cooperation is really at the heart of the meeting here, and so especially on the heels of China opening and the borders being more accessible, really being that bridge to have collaboration on what this next chapter can look like.
Fantastic.
And we're going to talk more about cooperation in just a second.
And Michael, if I can add to what Claire was saying,
please.
As a Latin American, I'm from Chile. You know, it took me more than 20 hours to get to Davos, right? It's a very far country. So cooperation is key for us from an international perspective, you know, cooperating with leaders from other countries. You know, this is a channel from China. I'm from Latin America. So we see here at Davos how many different countries are cooperating to have a more sustainable world. So that is something very positive that's happening.
Absolutely. Your audio was cut off just a little bit, Kamal, but I think we got the main gist of what you were saying. Hongyi, let me come to you, and maybe you could tell our audience a little bit more about what you do.
Sure, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Hongyi. Right now, I'm in Davos with a Global Shapers delegation and also the founder of Curiosity, or 问道东西 in Chinese, which develops globally competent talent and also facilitates cross-border collaborations to catalyze collective actions on global challenges. I also serve as a curator of Global Shaper Community Chengdu Hub. So we develop a new generation of young, aspiring young leaders here, and we've co-founded Global Youth Social Entrepreneurship Summit to empower the next generation of social entrepreneurs. I'm also a content creator. I create bilingual language, educational content for a global audience, aiming to bridge the gap of information and cultural understanding. So it's a great honor to be joined with you guys. Just looking forward to our fruitful conversations here.
Yeah, well, we definitely need more cross-cultural understanding, and I'm going to get your take on that in just a second, Hongyi. But I want to explore maybe this big theme of cooperation a little bit more, because that is the theme of this year's annual meeting, cooperation in a fragmented world. And I was taking a look at the theme of the forum 4 years ago, pre-pandemic. Quite striking to me, because back in 2019, the theme was all about globalization 4.0, and now, fast forward 4 years later, we're talking about potentially a more fragmented world. So how do you see this year's theme and how it fits into the wider global context? Kamal, let me start with you.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So when I see this fragmented world, so for example, in education globally, there's $30 trillion invested in education, but we still see regions like Africa and Latin America where 65% of education budgets were cut down, and we see all the challenges. You know, 80% of the schools in Latin America don't have any labs, so we see this inequity very present. But globally, the capital is there. So when we see the perpetuation of inequality, and even when we think of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we see a fragmented world in every sense. So how can we unify, the message here through empathy? How can we unify and leverage technology to collaborate and not to continue the divide? So I see that conversation very present here, understanding the inequities in the world today.
Right, but we got to change those conversations into actual action. Enoch, I mean, Kamal is in the education space, you're in the education space. I think you also worked in Africa as well, right? I mean, do you see that sort of gap in education in Africa, and what can we do about it?
I think there are a lot of challenges in equity, inequalities from around the world. And I think for example, during my time in Africa, I spent a lot of time, rather than just taking my experience I had before and just go and implement what I think I know. I think I spent a lot of time listening. And I think that's one of the great things at being at the forum is listening to a wide range of perspectives and having those really insightful conversations, which you otherwise won't have day in, day out. So I think there's this aspect of trying to better understand the people you serve. I think that's a very, very first step in any cooperation. But talking about the theme itself, I want to make a small remark because on the first day, the Chinese vice premier gave his special address, and then the European Commission president also gave her a special address to the forum as well. There's a stark contrast, I think, in my opinion. So the Chinese vice premier talked a lot about China reopening its door to investment, and foreign investment are welcome in China, and the door would only be more open further. Whereas the European Commission president literally take the theme as cooperation and fragmented world in terms of launching a Green Deal, as stopping factory leaving to go to US because it's a competing deals, or to go to China. So I think there's different approach and different understanding of it, and obviously different leaders will always speak from their interests and their audience. But I think taking a step back, trying to understand whether we are trying to address the fragmented world, or we're trying to now react and deal with and having a solution of how to cooperate and take it as it is a fragmented world. I think it's two different approach. I just find it very interesting.
It is very interesting indeed. And you mentioned Chinese Vice Premier Liu He's special address at Davos yesterday, and I think he mentioned international cooperation and world peace 11 times. So maybe then, Claire, do you feel that there is that mentality set already that this world is becoming increasingly fragmented? How much can cooperation really go in terms of mending some of our differences? Does it feel like fate has determined that we will be in a more fragmented world, or can cooperation really bring us back on the right track of rising above our differences and focusing on the common challenges facing humanity?
So you just hit on it, Michael, which is the common challenges that pull us together are really the overarching themes where we can really make the biggest difference. And yesterday, those came through in Hu Zhongli's comments. Liu He was very clear on the carbon commitments, the importance of sustainability. And that message coming from China was precisely aligned with the message that the rest of the world is looking at. When we're in the built environment business, we're building the spaces where people live and work, and long-term sustainability is critical. And so when we look at our tenants and our users, which range from quotized securities and large domestics to companies like Ferrari or Riot Video Games, everybody is thinking about sustainability and how they can incorporate that. And that is directly in line with the themes that we're hearing. I'll tell you another thing that really jumps out. 10 years ago, if we looked at the global Fortune 500, only 10% of companies were doing annual reporting on carbon or sustainability. Now 96% are. Yeah. And 60% of large S&Ps have made real carbon commitments. And so being here and looking at companies with global supply chains, also policy leaders and countries, that theme is very uniting. So I think fragmented has been in the title of the theme for this year, but cooperating on a common goal is much more flowing through the energy of all the meetings, I think.
Let me quickly...
And if I may add, to Claire, and sustainability and everything related to ESG and SDG goals has also been very present at Davos today. And talking about leadership, I unfortunately have to go to the session with Satya Nadella from Microsoft, which I'm very excited about. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure sharing with all of you today. Thank you.
Kamal, you got to leave us already. Okay, great. I mean, thank you so much, Kamal, for sharing your insights in this short amount of time, but I think you're going to hear some great perspectives from Satya Nadella of Microsoft.
Maybe before Kamal leave, I don't know if you have any question for Satya, maybe CGTN can help to ask that question to him later on.
Oh yeah, please do while I'm preparing my things to move.
That's a great idea.
Please do.
Enoch.
That's absolutely,
so
absolutely.
is there any question that you have? So is there any question that you have to him?
Yeah, Mike, do you want to share a question? So for me, the question would be, how can we continue uniting where technology is a means to an end and not the end itself? Technology should help us unite and collaborate more and not divide us, whether it's open AI and artificial intelligence or whatever. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect question.
Good intentions are,
Well,
thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Kamal. It's specifically about AI in terms of how we make sure we don't get these echo chambers. But Kamal, thank you again for joining us. Claire, I want to come back to you. You mentioned climate change and sustainability. Those are indeed two big areas I think that the world can cooperate a little bit further on. I mean, how optimistic are you given where perhaps geopolitical tensions stand these days and where the trend may be heading, that indeed climate can be that unifying force for humanity?
Mm-hmm. Our climate and carbon don't care about our borders. This is an issue that faces us all, and I think the energy that comes out of this conversation, and that we certainly see in our dialogues with our partners, whether it's in China or around the world, we're seeing that the commitment is bigger than country. It's bigger than nation. People, the language around it is really about what are we leaving for the next generation? What are we creating? What are we thinking about for our children? And that's incredibly uniting. It almost doesn't matter what language you speak or where you were born. It's something that we all share. And so it's been a very energizing area where you can walk through the halls in Davos and see people of every color and creed uniting with energy, excitement, and urgency around this issue. I think that's what really jumps out.
I was counting the number of sessions related to climate change because there's a filter, right, on the World Economic Forum's webpage, and I counted around 36. There's around 360 sessions, and climate change, I think, took up quite a hefty chunk of the sessions involved. So that's, I think, definitely a big topic.
Yes.
Yeah, for Davos this year.
But I'd say, Michael, it goes even further than that. And as a developer and real estate group, maybe we even see it more, because some things that may not be labeled as climate change are absolutely related. So sustainable sourcing of materials, or sessions on water use and lumber. Another very exciting area that they've been talking about that certainly aligns with what we've been working on, and what is obviously a large focus within China, is housing, and housing for next generations as they come into more compact urban environments. China has over 200 million renters today. That's more people than Brazil has citizens. It's a very big number. And so being able to collaborate and get perspectives, but also share the learnings that we have in China with the rest of the world, is just a huge privilege. And I know, that Enoch, you would probably say the same thing, having spent your time in Africa, and then also sort of being a very global citizen with the global shapers. But it's an exciting set of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Hongyi, let me come to you, because we definitely need more cross-cultural understanding if we want to boost cooperation in the world. How can we do that better in today's climate and today's age?
Well, the mere fact that young people have seats on the table, I think it's a great encouragement, right? I'm here with 50 young global shapers from around the world to represent the voice of the younger generation. And actually, half of us are in the climate about sustainability. Not only we are engaged in the conversations, we do have some speaking roles to actually challenge other world leaders, business leaders, and call for actions and provide youth-driven solutions as our way to represent the new generation on this kind of new but a fragmented space. And we're here gathered with a great enthusiasm. We are already feeling the energy coming from the forum. Right now it's day 3. Like I sense the very excitement of people coming together. I mean, we have the record number of participants ever, right? After 3 years of COVID disruptions, people are eager to re-engage and reconnect. I think this is a perfect platform, and the young people have a say. And I think it's very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the sessions then and the topics that you are most excited about, Hongyi? Because I can feel your passion and energy as well. And when you take a look at all the fantastic discussion areas available, which ones are you on the lookout for?
Sorry, Michael, you got cut off. I didn't catch a question.
Oh, I was wondering which topics and sessions you were most interested in, because I definitely feel your passion for the forum, your passion for the annual meeting, and was wondering which topics really caught your eye this year.
Sorry, I think I lost you for a while. But is it about my passion and the interested topics? I can just add my comments here.
Yeah, in terms of which specific sessions you might be interested in at the annual meeting.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So my passion is around the future of work, how we can prepare the young generation to be more competitive in the future job market. What kind of tools and skills and mindsets the young people need to really succeed in the future remote working environment, right? And what are the opportunities we can engage with? And we have the challenges coming from the digital transformation. We are seeing the trends of utilizing of AI, like ChatGPT. The technologies like this, or the generative AI tools, definitely will replace part of our job market, right? Replace some conventional job positions. So the young people should be educated about this, and they need to be well equipped to find a new career trajectory and to really succeed in the future job market. So job market is one thing.
Well, it seems like we're having some audio issues with Hongyi. We'll see if we can clean that up in a second.
Can work together, create scenario.
All right, let's see if we can clean up that audio from Hongyi. Enoch, I want to come to you because Hongyi spoke about a very important point in terms of technology and what that could mean for jobs. So as an educator, how concerned are you that education is not really keeping up with what skills are needed in the future based on disruptions from technology?
I think whether they're schools or universities, I think there are lots of reforms, there's a lot of experiments going on. And that's why I think we have to be able to focus more on, rather than teaching or rather than informing the future generation, we hope through education we can transform them, right? I think that's why there's a shift from knowledge to skills, and there's a switch from, I think, a teacher-centered to a student-centered classroom. So these are some of the things that I think there's a lot of conversation going on with that. And more importantly, throughout the last 3 years, I think there's a lot more conversation on how to integrate technology as a part of this, not to replace the classroom learning, but to supplement the classroom learning. So for example, Hongyi mentioned about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, the AI robots, automations of answering machines that Microsoft developed, I think is a very, very big topic, for example, in education, because a lot of educators are worried that are AI going to replace teachers, right? If students have all the answers in their pocket, what is the point of going to classroom? If all the classes are recorded, you can watch replay, then why go to the classroom? But I think of it from a different perspective. Because of this technology, it forces us as educators to improve ourselves. It forces us to be more creative, more innovative. So I think it is a good thing. I think whether we like it or not, technology is coming. So the better way to go forward is to embrace those technology and make the most out of it rather than try to avoid it forever. That's my take.
But then, Enoch, I mean, OpenAI and ChatGPT, this is a very powerful tool. The human mind really cannot keep up. It's impossible to keep up with an AI program like that. And I mean, does that not seem a bit scary to you in terms of what AI potentially can do to disrupt societies down the road?
I think I think it's good to be disruptive, as I mentioned. And I think at the end of the day is how we can work with the tool as opposed to let the tool replace what we have. I think with human and OpenAI combined, there's a lot more that we can do and sort of realize that vision of 1 + 1 more than 2.
Yeah.
There's a lot more time that has been saved. And now it can allow human to be human. It can allow human to be more creative and allow machine to be machine. I hope one day, I think as everyone here is a student, I think everyone hated remembering for exams. And I think maybe one day that's come true. Maybe one day that, searching on the internet is no longer considered cheating in examination. And I think there's a lot of those conversations going on, and working with others are not considered cheating in exam. I think there's a lot of this kind of rethinking because of technology going on in education.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting point, Enoch. I mean, you just, I feel, redefined what testing may look like in the future. Fascinating. Claire, I want to come to you and ask you sort of the same question. You are a manager, you are a leader. How do you feel the role of technology will evolve going forward? How much will it automate knowledge worker jobs? Because there is actually a session at Davos talking about exactly this, AI and knowledge workers. So can you think AI really automate knowledge and automate creativity, or is that going to be always in the purview of mankind?
Well, I can't pretend to have all the answers, but I can say how we look at it.
Yeah.
And definitely some of the conversations that have been going on here, which is how can these real quantum leaps in technology create data, really lakes that we can use and filter them to just make better decisions. And so if there was a great set of conversations going on yesterday around, what we called solutioning, which meant how can we take a series of problems and take an example and find something that's sustainable, repeatable, and has a compounding result. So whether that's about water reuse, or an example, take one from our part of the world, like Hong Kong, where the MTR train system is using the regenerative energy from braking the train, right, from the train slowing down, to power people's homes. That's incredible. But to be able to do that and scale something like that, that's an incredible technological feat. And so I think we look at these sorts of possibilities that come from being able to crunch data more quickly, energy and power switching, which is very difficult to do at a human capacity, but through machine learning is quite possible. Just those wins are truly compounding. So I think we look at where it can be exciting, and it's our job as humans to evolve and continue to push.
Yeah. Well, let me change the topic a little bit and get all of your takes on the state of the global economy, because that is also a huge topic every single year at Davos. It's one of the flagship sessions in terms of gauging where the state of the global economy currently stands. Hongyi, if your audio has cleared up already, maybe I want to get your thoughts on this first, because we went from what seemed like a rather less volatile world, a more certain world, into quite a quick turn into uncertainty and complexity. So how do you see the state of the global economy right now?
Right. I think after 3 years of COVID disruptions, we gather here again with a record number of participants. The eagerness to reconnect and re-engage is very big. So that's a good sign. So, and I think there's a need to find the next growth engine, right, after COVID, with the mission of being sustainable. So we've been joining the sessions about climate change, sustainability, and stuff. I think the world leaders and business leaders are coming together to provide more sustainable solutions to the economic environment. And I also like to chip in some youth perspectives in the economy, because right now the job market is pretty much saturated and over competitive. So people don't feel safe with their works, right? In the States, there's quiet quitting. In China, there's tamping, lying down kind of movements. So people are worried about economy, worried about their jobs. I think the model of the economy needs to be shifted to be more human-centered, to provide more opportunities to the individuals, especially the young people, so they can be more entrepreneurial and perhaps do the business to really to improve the economy from their capacities. So that's my personal perspectives.
Claire, what about you? As China reopens its economy, what do you think that would mean for the global economy this year? Because we are expecting a downturn in global economic growth for 2023 and perhaps a recession in several of the world's advanced economies. So what do you think China's reopening means for the world?
Well, I think the real focus has been on what that means in terms of being able to get leaders of companies that have global operations back into China. You know, over these last 3 years with closed borders, business has certainly continued, but many corporations have felt maybe a bit more disconnected by not being able to physically travel to the area. So there is really a ton of, I'd say, frankly, it's excitement about that sort of in-person capability to get together. So we're certainly feeling that, and it's tied into every theme, whether it's economy or human resources, or even thinking about bigger issues around education or broader themes. It's coming up in every conversation about China, but really positive.
Yeah. And Enoch, what about you? How do you view the state of the economy right now? The global economy.
So I think I think when we look at the global economy and when I joined some of the sessions of Davos this year, a lot of times it opened in quite a negative perspective, talking about a lot of different challenges and problems to resolve. And I think that is the reality. It is. So from there, I think there's just 2 points I want to share. I think one is when things go smoothly, I think anyone can do well. Yeah. I think when things aren't going as well, this is where going back to the discussion about innovation, this is why it forces the best out of you. And I think as anyone attending Davos, including this panel itself, I think we all love challenges. I think we see opportunities when there are challenges. So I think this is good from that perspective. But the other thing I want to mention just very briefly is that we in January, we just it's the start of 2023. So of course there were lots of review. You can call it videos, recapping what happened in 2022. And a lot of times they talk about all those different problems and challenges and turbulence that was experienced. But I came across one video, it was quite interesting. They talk about, the 22 problems that was resolved in the year 2022. Yeah. So I think what I want to get at is, yes, there is challenges, but I think we also should take time to celebrate some of the successes, some of the problems that we have resolved in the past in moving forward. I think that would put us in a better mood and be more hopeful towards the future, as opposed to being constantly in this anxiety of negativity. I think that's my brief take on this.
Enoch, I think that's a great point in terms of focusing on what we have achieved, right? The positive elements of the world and what can bring us better together. Then let me quickly follow up in terms of your thoughts on how social media perhaps may be dividing us a little bit more than promoting the atmosphere of cooperation, because we were talking about with Kamal, perhaps social media is more divisive right now these days. Does it feel that way to you? It can amplify echo chambers? I mean, how disruptive is social media, do you think, to cooperation?
So I think let me mention something quickly and then move, maybe other panelists have other thoughts. So when Klaus Schwab gave his opening address, he spoke about there's a lot of challenges. One of them is fragmentation due to system. One of the sort of causes of fragmentation is this massive. He called it messy patchwork of competing powers, including superpowers, emerging powers, regional powers, large corporate, and social media. So it is causing a lot of division and causing the world to be more fragmented. But at the end of the day, I think social media for me is a tool. It's how you use it. I don't think we should blame it on the social media itself. I think we as users should take responsibility over the use of it. But yes, of course, there's been a lot of different discussion due to whether it's switch of owners or whether it's different platform having different policy, etc. But I think as a good user of social media, good user of internet, we can make good use of social media from that perspective, being avoiding to be divided between opinions, and that means as young people we need to be more informed of opposing views. We need to be more conscious of different algorithm pushing us one side or the other.
Yeah. Claire and Hongyi, do you have a thought on this? Claire, let me get your thoughts on this first in terms of how divisive social media may be.
Well, the conversations here related to social media, there was a great set of panels yesterday with some of the younger folks who are joining, talking about how social media could be used to address specific issues. And so in that example, it was around food insecurity and for small farmers to be able to become more connected to each other across climate zones. So regardless of what country they're in, they're able to use data from weather patterns, experience, to be able to experiment with methods while they geographically would never be able to get together. And so I think in the way that Enoch just shared, that there are a lot of wins that can be celebrated over the last year versus challenges from the social media perspective, and definitely what's been coming up here in conversations is what can we compound in terms of positive impact using social media as a tool.
Yeah. And Hongyi, your thoughts on this?
Definitely, I do agree with the other two panelists. Social media essentially is a tool, and I'm all for hashtag social media for good, right? Because we can scale up our impact to tell our story. And personally working on videos to share our story, the young people's stories across the world, what kind of actions they are taking to tackle the global challenges. I think this kind of storytellings are really inspiring, and we can really engage more people into the movement. But on the other side, again, I agree that social media is divisive, but it's just a platform, a tool we can use, good or bad. There are some trade-offs. At the end of the day, I think we still need regulations, right? We need the way to also educate people on social media to be authentic, to also have the tools to cross-check, to fact-check, to track the sources and stuff. But we need the regulations to draw the boundaries. What are the bottlenecks we need to understand? I think this is super important. We don't want to just jump on social media and promote misinformation and stuff. But if we can all come together, find a way to promote social media for good, I think it can really scale up our impact. Like here right now in Davos, there are some great stories coming up. We will need the power of social media to tell the story and get more people into actions.
Yeah, we definitely need social media to be an amplifier of good in order to promote more cooperation in the world. I want to talk about talent, young talent, and maybe get all of your thoughts on this a little bit, because you are all young leaders and influencers, again, in your own right. So Claire, how do you think organizations these days can really better attract and retain young talent?
I think it's what we've seen in this next generation is the ability to really make a difference. And I'll make that more specific because it sounds like a big general statement. But to figure out how you can really be a contributor, whether it's from a strategy perspective, or coming in with ideas for a P&L or even a business within an existing company. I mean, just in our conversation today, the issues we're talking about affect, these are measured in decades, the impact, right? Decades plus. And so the folks who are coming into the workforce now are going to be owning those results. And so really being able to play a role in solutions is very real. So as an example, somebody who is joining the workforce today, who's 22 years old, they've never really existed without the internet, and much more socially native on whether it's apps or social media we've talked about, and that's much more prepared for these major leap transitions like Chat GPT or deeper AI. And really the only way that we're going to get to a smooth transition through these major technological steps, for businesses to find ways to disrupt themselves before they are disrupted, is by listening to that next generation. And so on the recruiting side, it's giving real responsibility as they join and come in the door, accountability as well. And then the ability to really take action around ideas that they're seeing that may be obvious to them and that are less obvious to folks who may be a few generations older.
Enoch, what about you? How can organizations better attract and retain young talent?
So working at Tsinghua University, working at my university, I always remember my first conversation with my supervisor. So instead of what is normally expected, you sit down and then the supervisor giving you a set of task lists. It was a very frank conversation without any exaggeration. So she spoke to me about, what do you want from this?
Yeah.
She was listening from the get-go and say, like, from this role, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And then I think the best thing is, she wasn't trying to hold me there forever. She wants to understand what do you have planned? How do you envision your role? What kind of impact? What the kind of things that you want to do? And I think that might resonate to some parts of the young people and trying to because I think a lot of young people, whether it's true or not, we at least we think we know what we want, and finding a workplace to be able to realize that, I think that give us intrinsic motivation to do better. I think that's one thing. The other thing I think Claire covered perfectly is finding a sense of purpose. But I think a lot of times companies do a very good talk, but retaining the youth talent, meaning that we need to deliver on those promises, and that come from breaking down what we need to do into small parts, and because being able to make a difference is not an overnight thing. It takes time. All right, it takes strengthening your skills, and sort of overcoming your weaknesses. So I think having a plan of not just doing but developing as a talent. So seeing growth. I think a lot of I think for organization to retain talents, we need to be able to let the young talent understand that they're growing, they're working towards something.
So Enoch, then you're saying that
Enoch, you said it well.
And I think
though,
those two elements are very, very important. One is to understand what young people. Sorry.
I think we've got a delay.
Yeah, I think there were some audio issues. Enoch, how about you just repeat a little bit your answer towards the end? You were cut off a little bit.
Okay, I apologize. So what I was trying to say is that I had a conversation with my manager to summarize, is that she came to me, rather than giving me an assignment list, she asked me, what do I want from this? What do I need from this? And I think that gave me a sense of understanding and an intrinsic motivation and drive to do better at my job. The second thing is that I very much agree with what Claire mentioned about the sense of purpose at work. But I think this is good in attracting talents, but to retain the talents mean we need to deliver on those plans. And having a talent development plan, I think, is crucial for an organization to retain talents, to be able to let the young talent understand that they're growing, they're developing, they're working towards something. Because we understand that making a difference is not overnight thing.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to work towards and take time.
Yeah. Claire, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I'd really applaud your manager for having that conversation with you, Enoch, and clearly it's stuck with you, through all these years. That one of the best quotes I've ever heard on this subject is that you hire for three things. I use this every day, which is you hire for integrity, intellect, and initiative. And if a person has those three things, then you can get out of the way. And the role of managers, within the companies, get out of the way and let the person grow. And so they're to guide, they're there to help, but with those three eyes, and really also encouraging that person that they have those things, they're limitless.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting to hear that filtered through with your manager, Enoch.
So I guess, Enoch, basically your manager helped you to find more purposeful work and help you discover maybe some of the more purposeful elements in your life. Claire, real quick, the three I's that you mentioned, in that order, is that what you look for in people? Integrity first, and then intellect, and then initiative? Or is that just in a random order?
Well, they're all important.
They're all
but
important,
integrity
yeah.
is always first.
Yeah,
Integrity
agreed.
is always first.
Yeah.
Because without a trust and foundation, where do you start? But you pose a great question. It's how you are able to get out of the way. You trust that people are waking up focused on doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And then with initiative, have the energy to chase answers and figure it out.
Absolutely.
I just want to add one very quick thing. Sorry. So I think why that conversation was very powerful for me, and I think I speak to a group of young people, which I hope to resonate, is that I think at that point when I had that conversation, I felt like I was equal with my manager. I felt like we're co-working towards something together, as opposed to someone telling me what to do. And I think a lot of young people wanted that respect, wanting that to be able to see each other as equal, and in return be able to produce something great together. I think that was something magical for me that happened.
That is a great feeling indeed. Hongyi, you've been listening intently where you are. What are your thoughts on this in terms of how to better attract and retain talent?
Definitely, I've been listening, enjoying the conversations, and that's actually something the leadership should do, right? Listen more, understand the needs of the employees, and the employment should not be, I think it's no longer transactional. I really agree with other panelists. This should be a purpose-driven culture in any organization, so people can work towards that mission as a team, right? Here at Global Shapers community, we are all for responsible leadership. Let me elaborate a little bit. So the leadership should be more transparent, right? You get your missions, your objectives clear with your staff, your team members. At the same time, you have the open communications to welcome any kind of feedback and suggestions. So you can work together as a team. I think responsible leadership is something very crucial for any organizations to really have that sense of purpose injected in the team to work as a team. Yeah.
Well, let me talk about your own leadership experiences because again, you guys are all, I feel, leaders in your own respective fields. And maybe tell our audience a little bit more in terms of why you chose your field and what keeps you going in terms of getting to that impactful day every single day. Enoch, how about let me start with you on this one?
I think it comes from a personal experience and understanding how education have changed my trajectory and in the future, and seeing the power of that coming from someone understanding, having great teachers, I guess. Understanding that a teacher isn't just about delivering knowledge, but about creating that environment for people to grow. And I think that made me understand that, there's this great mission of teacher to be able to be able to develop talents and to be able to see people as people. And And I think for me, that drive is how I can replicate that experience to more people, and how I can bring that experience so that more people can benefit from the power of education. Education, to educate, is to bring out, to educate, right? To bring out the potential of a human being. And I think if more and more educators are doing that, this is something, I think this is a win for me. So this is what keep me going. And of course, integrating on online education, meaning that we're able to increase the access to more people from around the world.
Yeah. And then Hongyi, why did you choose this field of cross-cultural communication? What was that spark, that catalyst?
Great. So professionally, I've been a international development professional myself. So I had the opportunity to engage with global business leaders, partners overseas. So I realized there's a huge gap between in the cross-cultural communications and collaborations. We understand here in China, there's barriers regarding the languages, the cultural differences, and some other, or even the access to information. So I think we need more facilitators to help with the communications. So here at Curiosity, we want to play a role to help young people better informed on the global issues like sustainable development goals and how they can better engage in the meaningful conversations with their counterparts from around the world. So we can facilitate this kind of meaningful conversations, actually get the young people in China engaged in not only in the conversations, but they can come up with their innovative ideas and take actions. So we also work with organizations to help with their overseas expansion, so they can better understand different cultures, how to communicate, how they can work together. So we have this community and curriculum to equip the young globally competent leaders for the future. So if I can go to a nuance, we have this framework called MILES, M-I-L-E-S, which stands for mindset. You need to have a global mindset. And I stands for informed. You need to be informed with all the global issues, all the topics. And L, which means link. You need to link all those global issues to your own context. And E, meaning engage. You have to be a part of the conversation, get involved, and more importantly, to shape. Also reference to global shapers, you need to voice out and challenging the power and have a seat on the table and make a difference.
Yeah, having a seat at the table, Claire, I mean, how much agency do you think the younger generation really do have these days?
Oh, I think this is their time to own. It's, with so many, every generation feels like they're living in a time of incredible change, incredible acceleration of change. That's maybe the one constant thing. But being able to own that space, the distribution of information has never been more democratized. I'd say, sitting here today, I personally am just so inspired by what everybody is creating. At a coffee this morning, I was sitting next to a young woman who's working on a new type of jet fuel so that we can all travel the world more sustainably. And then on the other side is someone who's focused on food insecurity and farming. But then also here we have the founders of some of the most important technologies in the world, and then the biggest stalwarts, companies like Lego that touches all of us, regardless of where you were born. And so having groups like that, listening to what young people have to say and integrating that into their product, into their strategies is exciting. So young people keep expressing, keep being loud.
Fantastic. Enoch, what about you? How much agency do you think this younger generation has?
I couldn't agree more with what Claire mentioned. I think there's a lot of things going on, but whether we like it or not, young people will be the leaders of society in the future, because that's how time works. But whether we're going to be good, whether we're going to be responsible one, right? Whether we are going to live and create a better world, create a better community. It is a shared future that we have. I think this is by destiny.
Yeah.
But then what we do now would affect the future. And as Claire mentioned, as Hong Yi mentioned, a lot of time, I think getting a seat on the table, that's why it matters so much, because we want to be a part of that conversation, because we're going to live through the consequences. That's why there's increasingly more and more young people getting involved in climate change, not just, not just being anxious of the consequences, but they want to make a difference now, because we're going to live through the consequences, whether we're going to still have a planet to live in. I think this is something that is within our control.
Right.
So yes, I think we still, yes, unfortunately, we still have to fight for that voice, but I think that fight, it sounds like to me worth fighting for.
So then, Enoch, let me quickly follow up on that. As a young influencer, as a young leader, what leadership traits matters to you the most? I know you mentioned that experience with your advisor, with your manager. It's going to be very important for leaders in the future to really empathize and help employees and staff find their purpose in work, in life maybe even. What else? What other leadership traits do you think are absolutely essential for the era ahead?
I think first, having a vision. I think that's very, very important. Because with our end goal in mind, it's very, very difficult to work towards. It's very difficult to mobilize people. It's very difficult to inspire people. So having a vision, having a visionary, having a picture of what the future will look like, I think that's very, very important for a leader. I think second is, I think being open-minded. I think that's very, very important. Is not to make assumption at the very, very beginning, but to be open-minded, to be able to welcome risk. I think that's very important. I think the other trait is, I think to be able to understand differences or to embrace differences while finding something in common, while finding what we have in common. I think this is very important, to understanding that the way that we see the world now or as ourselves might be different to what other people see the world. But then we live in the same world. So there must be something that we have in common, but however, there's something that we have difference. In order to cooperate in a fragmented world, it's important to understand the differences, but we can find commonality.
Yeah, perfect prescription for bolstering cooperation in a perhaps more fragmented world. Hongyi, what about you? Top leadership traits you think that are much needed for the era ahead?
Definitely. If I may first comment on Elok's, mentioning of the, being open-minded. So my startup called Curiosity. Curiosity is in the center of our education, our platform, our community. Being open-minded can unlock the potential of individuals, also any organization. Because simply, you don't know what you don't know, right? If you have a curious mind, open to the differences, willing to listen and participate, right? You can push the boundary of the knowledge. I had a wonderful conversation with Adam Grant, who is the author of Think Again. So he's really, encourage us to unlearn the things we used to know, but no longer apply to the current situations. And at the same time, rethink about the mindset we have, the thinking what we have, and explore, what's possible in the current context, even in the future. So I think that's crucial for a leader to be curious. And I need to, if I may add on more traits a leader should have, I'd say compassion, right? A leader should relate to their team members. The other thing, I'd say being vulnerable sometimes, having that human touch, so you can really have that bonding within the team that you can work together.
Interesting. Okay. That's quite a complete list, but Claire, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we keep it simple. My view is connection, creativity, and adaptability. And connection hits on two things. First, as Hongyi mentioned, the ability to connect with other people, make them feel comfortable, be open to pulling in connection, but also to be able to connect ideas. What's an idea from private equity that may work in venture capital, that may work in real estate development? And that connectivity is where you really get outperformance. And then to be creative, of course, but then to be adaptable, because the world is going to throw, whether it's macro situations or interest rates or geopolitical changes that you can't expect, but how can you be able to, with a positive way, adapt a business, adapt a team to stay relevant and evolve and find solutions?
Yeah. Well, final question for all three of you, because we're running short on time, and that is your message to our world leaders today. Big question, very general as well, but maybe a little bit difficult also. So who wants to take a crack at this one? Hongyi, how about you? Your message to our world leaders today.
Well, I'd say global challenges need collective actions. That's something the world leaders should keep in mind.
Short, simple, and sweet. Very good. Enoch, what about you? It's tough. I know it's tough.
Dude, Claire, do you want to go first? And then I need to.
Oh, Enoch, you have the floor. Keep running.
Okay, then don't do what's popular, but do what's right for the world today and tomorrow.
That is quite profound. Claire, you have a big shoe to fill after what Enoch said.
I'd just say to be forward facing.
Yeah.
And so to listen, to look ahead, and to collaborate.
Fantastic. And on that positive note, unfortunately, we're going to have to end this conversation. Fascinating insights from all of you. So Claire, thank you so much. Enoch and Hongyi, thank you for joining us from Davos and right here in Beijing as well. Thank you to you all.
新年快乐.
新年快乐. Happy Year of the
Bye
Rabbit.
bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
And that's going to do it for our Ask Davos, exchanging ideas with global youth and future leaders. Thanks for joining us in our virtual studio here in Beijing. I'm Michael Wang. We'll see you again next time.